Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Cup Interviews. My name is Jillian Robinson. I am the associate producer here at Cup of Hemlock Theatre and your host for today's episode. And I am joined by an exquisite guest, a phenomenal artist, a fellow podcaster, and from what I've gleaned so far, a wonderful human and soul to get to know today. Selfishly on my end and for us here at the Cup and the community beyond, I am here with Bri Clarke. How are you doing today, Bri?
Hello. Hi, Jill. I'm so grateful we can do this.
I'm
feel like I've been seeing
fangirling.
you in a long time. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I feel like we haven't seen each other in a while, so it'd be really great to catch up and see where the state of art is right now. Yeah, I'm so
Absolutely.
grateful.
Yes. Yeah, let's just jump right into it. I guess just a little backstory. Bri and I met each other this April, right?
Yes.
April, March.
Yeah.
Bri was performing as a dancer in a piece, which we'll get into. No spoilers right now. And I was obsessed with the piece and also her expertise. And then we chatted in a little kind of art gathering post show. And then we crossed paths again at Fringe, where again, no spoilers, Bri was involved in a project that I saw and the piece blew my mind. And I was not surprised because I'm like, this person is a powerhouse. So we are going to unpack Bri Clarke.
I'm so glad that we organically met in that little art circle where we both oh, you have a show? I have a show.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
And that was the first time I had heard of another person doing an art podcast too. And I was like, whoa, this is cool. This other are having the combos.
Totally. Feels great.
Yeah. So, okay, before we geek too hard out, let's do the usual icebreaker for here at the Cup. What is in your cup today? What are you sipping on with us?
I'm double fisting it, as the kids would say.
I love it.
I have a little bit of hot, a little bit of cold. I have some chamomile tea.
Yes.
Some, vocal cord injury prevention, and some ice cold water that I feel like I always need to do the extremes with. So yeah,
I love it.
What's in my cups?
One foot in each.
You? What's in yours?
We didn't plan this, everyone, I swear, but I'm also double fisting.
Actually, this is so cool. Wait, oh my God. And what kind of tea do you have?
So I should be drinking throat coat tea, again, to keep those vocal cords ready. But I'm actually drinking decaf vanilla hazelnut black coffee in the cup.
Nice.
And then just some water, some lukewarm water. So
look at that.
We have the same vibe going on, but a little bit different, which we love that.
We love that. I also feel like we're kind of matching with our the reds and the oranges. So nice.
Yeah. Again, didn't plan, but maybe the universe planned for us. We have no way of knowing. Okay, so let's just blanket statement. Tell us about yourself. How did you get into performance? Who is Bri Clarke? I'll let you take the reins and share as little or as much as you'd like.
Who is Bri Clarke? I started dance training when I was 7. I went to a studio. I grew up in Ottawa, so I went to a studio that had competitive dance training there called Lean Dance Works. I spent 9 years, basically up until high school, training competitively. So I was doing all the styles and really just crash coursing on everything, just learning as much as I could, and also competing in competitions around Ontario. And I loved it at the time. I was very much a disciplined go-getter. And then I moved to Toronto after high school to attend TMU University, which is formerly known as Ryerson, to gain my BFA. And I realized that I hated competition. I hated the jealousy and the toxicity that sometimes comes with competitive art, which is in itself an oxymoron. So, you know what I mean? So I fell out of love with competition dance, and immediately when I came to Toronto, realized that there's just such a big arts community here. And it kind of, my performance preference changed into more acting, dancing, more theatrical dancing, not just straight up ballet, rigid technique. So and I graduated in 2020. The pandemic happened, and I'm trying to be a working artist post all that. So that's where my training started, and here I am now.
Love that journey for you. And it sometimes is hard to kind of wrap the head around as how big the palette of art is in Toronto. I think to like a lot of folks, especially outside of the art sphere, kind of they're like, oh, Toronto, Mirvish, but like, no, there's so many other houses, equity and indie. And then within those facilities too, there's the different streams of art. There's dance, there's musical theater, there's Bright. And yeah, it's interesting hearing folks' journey of when they kind of land in Toronto, the pivots and turns and pirouettes maybe they make that they didn't think they were going to. Apologies if I pop in some like punny dance jargon as we.
Oh my gosh, go for it.
Okay, love that. Again, a lot of today's conversation, folks, too, is me learning more about Bri too. So I feel honored that you're able to share your journey with us. So I say this as you probably already all gauged, everyone. Bri is honestly one of the best dancers I've seen in this city. And like, I don't frequent like dance houses per se. I want to now that I've seen like the work that's, available in Toronto, but you just have such an essence of like storytelling is saying it lightly. There's like a depth to your work that, and I've shared this with you before when we were talking during Phantasmagoria, which we'll get into later, but there is just such a connection of like art, humanity, storytelling, and emotion, like bottled in how you work. And I think that's such a rare quality to have, and it's beautiful and stunning to watch. So
thank you.
Of course. So if we can go there, maybe digging into that, like what draws you to dance? Why is this sort of form of communication been your avenue?
It used to be when I was growing up, just because I wanted to be a fairy and I wanted to like float and like magically, move through the world. And then I think now in 2022, I'm starting to realize like dance and movement and being like in my physical body is much more of a radical act than I thought it would be. I feel like a lot of humans, maybe just in my experience, the ones that I frequent with, sit and have to like be stationary for most of their lives or most of their daily life. And it really like saddens me that like we can't connect to our human bodies physically. So yeah, like I really loved movement. I loved being able to explore stories through movement, and then it's starting to like really become something that I believe is important for humans, like to be able to move and access pleasure and access like joy. So movement for me is really about like being in my body and being present with my body. And then what's so wonderful about what I get to do is I get to like share that with others. And I have a passion inside of me for movement and music, but I also want to share stories and become these characters. And as a teacher as well, like I try to teach that to my students, that like we can move and be movers, and it's all naturally inside of us. Like it's not something that we have to like put on, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, storytelling is a big one for me. And I think like finding ways that I can do that physically is kind of where my head's at right now. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've always like dance is such a universal language, dance and movement, right? I mean, there's different areas in the world that express themselves certain ways, but like it's you can learn, to me, like it's easier to learn a movement than it would be probably to learn a language, a verbal language rather. And I think that like when I get so emotional, I feel like I get the most emotional watching a movement or a dance piece over like any acting or singing piece. And I think it must be because of this sort of universal understanding that like we're all watching what's going on. And I think also too, there's a versatility to it. Like, I mean, it depends what the movement and dance, I guess, is for, but what you're perceiving and sort of making of what you're watching might not be exactly what your neighbor is perceiving or making what they're watching. So it's this sort of endless story per se, but like everybody's story is curtailed a different way, I guess, depending on maybe also what you're dealing with as the audience member or as the fellow cast member or as the artist too.
That's one of the challenges.
I'm not a dancer, so I don't know if I'm just like, but that's just what I perceive. Like, I don't, I guess.
That's your experience, like watching it. And I have that too, where I'm like, what's going on with that abstract piece of choreography? Like, and I think like that's one of the challenges that I face as being like a movement artist, is that the interpretations are literally endless
Yeah.
about what kind of story I'm telling or what kind of emotion that I'm evoking for my audience. But that's the like
It's
such
like a
a
perfect imperfection kind of
yeah,
thing, right?
exactly. It feels so like sacred in that way and precious.
Mhm,
And like
mhm.
I think I've realized as well, like getting out of school and like an academic side about movement, I realized that like I'm allowed to like make work that maybe people don't understand or can't really access. But my goal is always to reach them in some way, whatever that
Right.
way is, you know, in that moment.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's such a challenge, but like a welcome one, you know?
of course. And did you, speaking of challenges, and you bring up a really good point of the physical self is something we can all access, but a lot of us in the work we do, the way we spend our daily lives, we are sitting and kind of boxed in per se, but not to mention the big bad COVID word, but like at a time when we were locked down and locked in. Yeah, if you feel comfortable sharing, like what did that do to your relationship to movement? And because dance is also, in my opinion, too, a community. Even when you are doing like a solo
Yes.
piece, it is presented usually for other folks. So how did you kind of manage that? The pandemic pivot, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, literally a pivot. I like graduated in 2020,
Yeah.
in May of 2020. Like I literally was dancing 8 hours a day, training with like 30 other people in my class. Like I was very much in a community of people who were constantly, you know, and like studying about what this is, this dance
Hmm.
thing. And then I went to zero. I went to nothing for give or take like 3 or 4 months. I
Hmm.
was at home, my apartment, and I had some space that I could move in, but it was much more limited than I was used to. And I mean, to be honest with you, I stopped training in the way that I did because I had a real like almost just like spite for it at that time. Like I was really like mad and angry at the state of the world and felt like I couldn't do anything because I was stuck inside and all of the jobs that I had lined up were canceled. So there was a moment where I hated movement, and I'm going to be honest and say that because
Yeah.
I've kind of overcome it, but it really made me stop and realize that oh, like I can be a human who like
Yep.
is stationary. And then something, you know, after a couple of months, I realized that like I needed it and I
Of
needed it
course. Yeah.
for health, not really
Yep.
just for creative reasons, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Oh, absolutely. Like I can totally relate to just like
Mhm.
I too also plummeted right at the beginning of
Yeah.
the pandemic rather. And I remember I took a full month off. And then it
Wow.
was like at the top of the next, like off, like I went home and I was helping to watch my niece and nephew. So I was busy and I was being creative in a sense, but it was like art really, it was like, okay, art doesn't exist this month. And it was kind of like,
Right.
oh, this is happening now. Okay, just art just doesn't exist. Cool. But then the top of May was like, whoa, I'm hungry. I am
Mm,
starving for something artistic. And
yeah.
that is when I joined Cup of Hemlock. Viewers and listeners, listen.
Okay. I want to hear
That was
about that.
the
Yeah.
ball, yeah, rolling the ball of Cup of
Yeah.
Hemlock. But yeah, and like
Yeah.
so I totally get it. It was like, okay, and I think I didn't feel spiteful per se, but it was like a okay, we're pivoting to something else right now, and that's
Mm.
okay. But like and underneath was like, whoa, 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 whoa. I do remember having a moment of I was staying at my brother's at the time, and I was like wanting to play a piano so bad. I play like piano
Mm.
here and there.
Same.
And I just wanted to play and accompany myself while singing.
Yeah.
And it just I like started bawling because I'm like, I don't have access to a piano. And then
Mm.
my brother and my sister-in-law, like so sweet, and we still have to this day, he like ordered a piano in. He's like, we will order a piano in, and like at dinner time, you can play. But my nephew was a baby at the time,
Hmm.
play some stuff, and like we
Yeah.
will just get a sort of portable. And I was like, whoa, I needed someone to even be like, there is access to some form of art. But it was
Mm.
like, I let my mind for a whole month be like, it just doesn't exist. And it's like,
Yeah.
whoa, whoa, whoa. And then it was like a pressure cooker. It just like exploded of it needs to exist and it can, like,
Yeah, it's
Mm,
like the community is still there. And like going
yes.
back to what we were saying about like being around others who are also artists and
Yes.
like that fuels me and reminds me, you
Yeah.
know, we as humans are creatives and enjoy art,
Yes. And
Yeah.
this platform here, like what we're doing today, this sort of was birthed out of Cup of Hemlock, like halfway through the first little chunk of the pandemic. And
Mhm.
but now this is like a safe haven if we ever were to go back into lockdown. Conversations like we're having right now can happen and should happen, because even if we can't physically be doing the work, we can be chatting about it. We can be connecting. We can be planning for when those doors open again.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Having those
Um,
discussions really saved me during the pandemic because I
of
was
course.
podcasting with my podcast, Art
Yes.
Versations,
Hmm.
which is on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Tune in now. I started doing that as soon as lockdown happened. I messaged a bunch of artists. I was like, "Are you okay? Where are you at? Can we talk about it? Even if you have nothing going on, like no
Yeah.
projects, can we talk about what's going on in the world and why?" Arts are still alive, even if
Yeah.
live performance can't be happening. So it discussing and keeping that conversation alive is also something that fueled me and reminded me again that this is, what we do is needed and human.
Yeah.
But without it, I probably would have just gone. All of my love would have been gone. It's I need other people to keep
Yes.
me reminding of that.
Me as well, too. Like social butterfly vibes were just
Yeah.
like smack down with a machete, and it's like, okay, great, how do I but let's crack open actually your podcast. Let's go
Yeah.
there now, since we're kind of we're fluttering around it.
Yes.
So Art Versations, the
Mhm.
podcast, that is your podcast, right?
That is my podcast.
um
Conversations with art at the front of it. Yes.
Love it. So yes, you've talk about the podcast. You do you
Yeah.
host it? What is sort of, the day-to-day vibe of what your platform does? And
Mhm.
we've kind of already been talking about why it's important to our industry, but just let's dig a little deeper, I guess.
Yeah, I'm so grateful to talk about it. And, we're going to have an episode together as well. So by the time this comes out, please go and
Yeah.
listen to Jillian's exercise episode. It is a podcast. It doesn't have a video element to it. So it's very much about listening. And I think it's a meditative conversation about the artistic process in general. And my hope is that it provides artists with a platform to reflect on what they're working on or what they have worked on. But it's not necessarily like an interview. I think there's something interesting about two artists talking and kind of meeting each other in different places in their processes. So I also kind of try to relate to what they're saying and bring out questions that maybe could counter them.
Yeah.
I think the industry in itself needs critical discussion, yeah. And this is why I love what you do as well. And I think the more that we can discuss what's going on I think my hope at least is that it's more an efficient way to make,
Of
there's
course.
more discussion around it. So then we can discuss it and then move on and find something else. And it's this constant cycle of what are we making? Who is it reaching? What's working? What's not working? Let's move on from there.
Yeah.
And I think I created it because as a dancer, primarily, I don't use my voice very much.
Right.
And so I wanted other dancers as well as myself to take a second to verbalize and vocalize what they're working on.
Mhm.
And that's been very therapeutic. And I hope for
Mhm.
my guests as well, just to talk,
Of course.
use the voice. Yeah.
It's like verbal journaling in a way, right? Like as
Totally.
you're kind of mapping out the cycle of how your process works. It's a way, it's a way of an exercise. It's funny that you accidentally said exercise instead of episode, but I'm like, wait a second. It is what we're doing is kind of like exercising our craft, because
so true.
part of the craft, right, is I always say this, and Cup is going to be like, this girl always says this, but you're the human before you're the artist.
Right.
And our bodies are our instrument, regardless of what pathway of the arts you are actively working in or have chosen to work bulkly, sure. But our bodies are our instruments, right, as artists. And part of that is human, and the human experience impedes and impacts our work. And a lot of that kind of going back to like OG human days, like community conversation, group, hunter gatherer mentality, right? We revert back to yeah, the original ways. How did humans sort of survive socially? And even just talking about the arts or wading through the weeds of the arts, that's kind of like the wheels turning to
Totally.
evoke change, make change, or like to create or spark a beginning of a creation that may not have
Yeah.
been present unless you took the time to talk about it, right? That's just really neat. Like I never really even thought about the mechanics of like what we're doing now and what you do with your podcast too, and we will be doing soon. So tune in to that episode too.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree
It
with what
is
you just
just
said.
that. It's kind of just like
Hmm.
a playground think tank of
Yeah.
talking through art.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think like if as a consumer, as a listener
Hmm.
of podcasts as well, I get in a rut inspirationally. I get to these points where I don't feel passionate about the arts. And then I hear that other people are, because I listen to so many podcasts that also talk about like art
Yeah.
process. And I'm like, oh, reinvigorated. And like it like brings me back into like an ambitious side of being an artist. And I think that
Yeah.
like just listening and hearing conversation does
Hmm.
wonders for me in my work. So I hope to bring that for others and
Of
hopefully
course.
inspire, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So good. The artist senses are tingling. We're doing it. Okay, so like yes, you are the host of this fabulous podcast. You are an
Mhm.
extraordinary dancer. You are a performer, you're a movement teacher, you are a producer, which again we'll get into what I saw you produce past summer. But you literally wear so many hats and we love to see it. We
Yes.
love it. Just pile those hats up. So what it like draws you to kind of take on all of these roles, and what is your secret of how you balance them? Do you have, yeah, a way of going about things? Crack it open for us.
It happened accidentally that I like became a producer. I think for starters, like in my early training, like it was definitely performance based and I bulkily wanted to just be like a performer, in that condensed way. And then I started realizing that I love choreographing. I love like how my performance informs my choreography and vice versa. And
Mm.
then I started teaching and then it just became so many different layers. But I think there's a through line at the end of the day between all of these hats that I wear. So I don't have a secret. I really don't. I don't know how I'm managing all of it. It's been kind of accidental that projects have landed in my lap in that way. But I think I try to remember like there's a through line that art is about connecting with humans. So wherever that, ends up being, if it's through my performance, through my choreography, through making a show at the Toronto Fringe Festival,
Mhm.
or, if it's through like the students that I work with. That's my goal, is just to be
Yeah.
able to connect with humans in different ways. And yeah, just realizing that they're all connected, those
Yeah.
different disciplines and the different hats. They're all kind of the same. They're all fedoras, but maybe they're just different color fedoras, if I can say that.
Okay, that is going in our video description. They're all fedoras, but different color fedoras. Yes.
Specifically a fedora, that like the lid of
Yeah.
the fedora.
Yes. I'm there with you. And it's easy stackability too if you use
Totally.
that style of hat. Yeah.
There you go.
I'm there. And that's so interesting to like kind of come at it of an angle of like they're all related. Things are kind of just falling into the lap and like we're just going kind of rolling with the punches. As
Totally.
someone like I did training with University of Toronto and Sheridan College. And so
Mm.
like coming from a training facility too, I feel maybe you have a different opinion, which is totally great too. But like it's something that had to be like, for me at least, relearned or unlearned maybe, that it's
Mm.
okay to kind of have your eggs in other baskets as long as it's, the commitment and time is still able to be devoted.
Right.
But like, I just remember graduating and having the thing of like, okay, so I'm an actor now, and that's all I do is act, and I just have to be an actor. And then part of like my COVID experience was like when that didn't happen, when things went in lockdown, I was able to do like digital stage management. And I did love that quality of myself too. And my program like peppered all different sort of avenues of the industry at us. So like I knew that these doors were open, but it was
Yeah.
very much like I was like, I have to do one thing, I have to do. But now I feel like I'm in the same, like that statement you just made of like, oh yeah, we're just doing all different things and like it's okay to be doing all different things. But
Yeah.
I guess like this is kind of like a weird tangent. But did you experience it? I mean, coming as like a dancer too, did you kind of experience that shift too of maybe that's just like an adult thing we learned too of like,
Right.
how are we going to play
Yeah.
the bills? Well, I want to be doing this. So I just have to be like an educator and an actor this month. And that's
Yes.
totally okay. But then it's so interesting because
Yes.
then you find that, the thing that's maybe not the conventional or the way you had in your brain of how you want it to be, like the educator position or something, heavily influences the art side.
Hmm.
And then it's like I have these afterthoughts of like, oh my God, I don't even know if that art piece would have been as good and fortified as it was if it wasn't for my brain also splitting and educate into an educator position.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah,
It's yeah.
yeah.
It all circles back to like I'm curious about something and passionate about it, and I need
Mhm.
other people to help me figure it out.
Yeah.
And to help us figure it out as a team. So it's been one on one, it's been internal, it's been in a group, it's been me at the front, me at the back of the room. Like
Yeah.
all of that encapsulates like what I do. And I think I would like to think that it makes my work more digestible and more
Mm.
accessible for folks. Yeah, and of course it's about paying the bills. Like I realized very quickly, separate from the pandemic, but that being a just a dancer in this city is next to impossible. Like it's an avenue that I think a couple of my friends have gone to and have been able to be successful in, but in my case, I've had to supplement it with teaching, most choreography here and there, but performance is at this point in my life something that I do the least
Okay.
out of
Yeah.
all of the hats that I wear. I hope that it'll pick up, but like that's okay because
Yeah.
I take what I've learned from other projects and other roles that I do, and whenever I can get back to performing, it always comes back full circle.
Of course.
Yeah.
And it's like staying under the umbrella of the arts community in some shape or
Yes.
form too. Like
Yeah.
even with maybe pivoting to a bit more side Joe jobs, as you will, ones that are like infused with community engagement, or even if that is like a serving job or like a retail job, like you're still interfacing with people and
Mhm.
learning about the human body and reactions and emotional ranges. And yeah, and it's just like, oh, right. Like all of this can contribute in some shape or form.
Yeah. And just to echo off of that, like allowing
Yeah.
myself to be a human in the world and not just
Yes.
an artist is like
Yep.
something I'm also learning in my adult years. Like I can't just interact with artists.
Yeah.
That's not enough, to be
Right.
able
Right.
to
Right.
make human stories and human
Mhm.
experiences come to life. So totally
Yeah.
echoing everything you just said. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's so healthy for us to like step outside of the arts and have like those other avenues too, because like the industry, it forces us to crack open and be vulnerable and sort of be on our creativity a lot of the times. And that's a lot of pressure, like psychologically, especially physically with like a movement person or a dancer. And so
Totally.
taking the time, again, I'll say it again, like we're humans before we're the artists. So
Mm,
whatever kind of, shape that takes for people throughout their journey, like it's something I have to remind myself of. And it's something I find like constantly coming up in conversations with other artists and even like family members and friends who aren't, but they say like, how do you do it? Or how do you balance? I'm like, well,
right.
when I'm in a production and I need to be memorizing lines and dance, I binge watch reality TV shows because like that's the one thing that just keeps me kind of like on the outside tier of
Right.
deep art. And it's
Yeah.
just something to mindlessly binge. Um,
Totally.
my
I love
parents are always
that.
like, how do you waste your time with that? I'm like, listen, I can't dive into like the wonderful depths of Orange is the New Black right now, but I can watch some Jersey Shore Vacation. Like that's where I'm at. Like,
Totally. That's so funny. I just recently started watching that again as well. Like I used to watch Jersey
yes.
Shore when I was younger. And it's mindless. And it's like,
Yeah.
not to say that they're not making art as well, but like
No,
it's
yeah.
very surface level. So it kind of helps my brain to shut off after
Yes.
doing all of these things artistically.
Yes.
That's so funny that you said that. That's
It
hilarious.
doesn't surprise me. Again, as we're coming in double fisting, didn't even plan.
Amazing.
Yeah. Okay. So let's kind of scope in a little bit further. I just want to fangirl more on the pieces that I've either seen you in or involved in. So let's talk about the first time I was exposed to your work. You were performing in Tranzanc's production of A Grim Night, which folks listening or watching, Mackenzie and I did a review of back in the spring. We went and experienced the immersive, magical, sort of multi-layered art piece that was Grim Night, and then we chatted about it. But we have now an inside view with you. So what was your experience like with that piece? And can you immersively walk us through your experience?
Oh, so well said, everything you just said. And I just want to say, like, the review that you and you put on was like so well detailed, and I just kudos to you for like encapsulating all of what this show is, because it's very layered. A Grim Night is an immersive dance theater experience at the Great Hall here downtown Toronto. It is 2 storylines happening at the same time. So you can follow the Cinderella cast if you would like, or the Sleeping Beauty cast, or both. What I was lucky enough to work with was understudying multiple tracks within those 2 casts. So I got to learn the stepsister role and a little bit of the evil step queen. And then I also got to work with the fairies of Sleeping Beauty. So I was the only understudy at the time. So I was basically learning like 6 tracks at once.
Like, what a tank. What a pure champ. Like, everyone listening, holy moly.
It was kind of insane. I don't know why I did that, but the director, Julia Cratchley, who's a dear mentor of mine from when I was younger, she trusted me with all that. And I was so grateful for it, because at the time, this was back in April that we put it on, but we were going to do it in January originally, before the Omicron lockdown happened.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, I was really needing like a heavy project to work on. Like, I wanted to really dive into it and learn as much as I could and educate myself as much as I could on what it is to put on a show. So I ended up swinging. Like, I ended up doing as many things as I could because I was hungry for it. Kind of like what we were saying about just like, I need something to chew on. Mm-hmm. But I also was able to perform in the pre-show of this big experience, which is where the deer antlers come in.
Yes.
So that was a lot of fun to roam around as audience members were coming in and kind of be this like bridge to the actual show. We basically allow the audience members to go wherever they want, but I think it's important to have something happening at the beginning, because that's a lot. Like, that's a lot for an audience member to walk into.
Yep.
So I felt like very grateful to have this role of like the bridge as the creature.
Yes.
Who was kind of like warning the audience about the grim endeavors that were about to happen. And I tried to like make them remain alert and agile and like ready for it, because I think it's just a lot to come into.
Yes. Yeah. So everyone, I met Bri as like this deer-esque character. That was our first interaction. And I can totally back you up. Like, you basically were like the audience liaison kind of in a way, because how it, in my experience walking in, it was the Great Hall was the main space where we all kind of gathered as the guests. And like, there was we knew in advance we would be kind of roving around, but not really sure maybe where we could go, or like, is it all in this hall? And we just rove in the upper levels or what have you. But then I remember it was you and Clayton Gray. Yeah. And he was kind of coming like as like a Brothers Grimm sort of character with the open book, inviting people for a short story time kind of. So there was between the 2 of you, and then both of you kind of left the hall. But it wasn't like you're leaving the hall, now you're off stage. Like, you were like enticing people to follow you. And so like the rules of what the piece really was mapped out by yours and Clayton's interaction with the audience in a way of like, it's okay for you to interact too. So, and I'm always someone totally opposite to Ryan here at the Cup. Ryan like is like, no audience participation, please. Where I'm like, yes, give me it. Like, I want to know where am I going? And so I was so in on it. And, being a fellow artist too, there's that feeling you don't want to be left with egg on your face if no one is sort of helping you along. So I also figured
Yes.
out what you and Clayton were doing. And I was like, okay, I need to follow along with them, because if I was in their shoes or sitting in that no one was, interacting.
And
So
I did get a couple people be like, stay away from me.
right, right. And but like,
Yeah.
trying to augment the experience with you all. But just like even just looking back on you in that creature role, like I remember saying multiple times, Mackenzie, that every like inch of your body, your stature was like moving with purpose and like
Mm.
propelling the next motion. And that's where I was like, wow, this is going to be fantastic. Like this piece, of course. Yeah. And yeah, it was just like super vital for, I hope, yeah, if Transcendence does more of these down the line, people should definitely come check it out, because and it was a way of seeing Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty differently, obviously, because it's movement oriented, it's movement infused. So you already have that going on. But then the fact that it's happening in tandem with each other,
Mm.
I was like, oh my gosh, when would I have ever been put in one general space where I'm in like direct comparison and contrast of Sleeping Beauty and Cinderella? And like,
Cool.
what can
Interesting.
these pieces say or influence to each other? And
Yeah.
then I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like the fairy facet of the piece, they were woven into both plots, correct?
Perhaps. I mean,
Mostly Sleeping Beauty, though, right? I guess. I
yeah,
guess the two
yeah.
would have been what I've perceived.
The great like wonders of this show, and I was lucky enough to always watch each show, is that the characters sometimes do meet up even if they're in
Right.
two different storylines. And so we talked a lot in process about like, what does that mean? Does it mean
Mm,
anything? Are they in the same world, like same
right.
setting, or are they very separate? The two princes of each storyline definitely meet up. They have
Yeah.
this like very interesting combat battle at the beginning. But I think one of the things that Julia and I and the rest of the cast were trying to research is like, if it is immersive and interactive, um, how much do we play into like the improv moments,
Sure. Yeah.
or the moments where the audience like takes us to a new thing and then we have to readapt. So it like is such a
Yeah.
like an infinite amount of possibilities about who we interact with, even if the choreography is set.
Right. And that's something that was so mind boggling to me too, is like, not only is there the layered choreography within each piece, but also pieces working in tandem together. But then there's
Yes.
the fight choreo. There
Yeah.
was like armed combat and hand to hand combat, to the point where I remember watching, I was following the Cinderella through line, and I might have mentioned this in our review episode, but I was standing at like a pillar of the Great Hall,
Yeah.
and the prince actually had to step kind of towards me. Prince and Cinderella kind of like subtly shuttled, like shimmied me away, because then the stepsisters did like this like whack on the thing. And I was like, oh my God, if they didn't take it upon themselves to move me, I would have just been like a broken out. No, I mean, obviously they would have probably pivoted their choreo, but so that they didn't
Yeah.
have to, I was
Right.
like, wow. And then that's when it hit me too. I'm like, oh my gosh, all of these artists have to have like an outside night by night improv cap on for safety and inclusivity all the time
Yes.
as well.
It's so great to work with that lens,
Yeah,
because it isn't proscenium audience.
right.
So we have to be aware, like you said, for safety. But then it makes these moments so much more authentic. Like for you, like you
Yeah,
almost felt like you were part of the fight in itself.
yeah.
And I'm so grateful for that opportunity.
So I remember
Okay, there's a lot of
Kelly,
people in the cast.
Kelly literally looking at me and kind
Oh
of doing
yeah,
the thing of like as Cinderella being like, what's going on? But also like, you need to move, human, because you are going. I was like, I absolutely understood. I picked up what she was
yeah.
putting down. I'm like, you just told me three things in one glare, and I'm here for it.
Kelly's
Um,
a fantastic communicator in that sense. I
yeah,
loved
yeah,
watching her each night change up how she interacted with people. Yeah, totally. That's so cool. I
yeah,
love that.
yeah,
That is
yeah.
really
It was
awesome.
super neat. And yeah, again, if Transcendence does more of these magical nights, again, I want to go, because it's one of those shows too. They feel like every experience just by laws of probability is going to be different because it's
Yes,
impossible for you to be two places at the same time. So
totally.
I, I don't want to be the nerd that has like a clipboard, but like if I saw
Yeah,
it more than once, I'd be like, okay, so at this time, like this is the stage manager and me being like, at this time
totally.
I was in the basement. So the next time I go, I have to be on the balcony, like, and just
Absolutely.
like
That was me. That was me.
try to consume it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cause I
Stay
also,
tuned. We'll see.
I remember you too, like as the show went on, you were wearing like a transcendent dance t-shirt, but you were still in the world, but also like an observing force too. So that was, I thought was like super cool.
Yeah, I
Um,
had to like play a bit of a like assistant stage manager role during the
mhm.
show, but I
Yeah.
also wanted to keep like that, grimness. And a lot of our ushers were just fantastic at keeping the magic alive, even if they weren't
Yeah.
playing the
Yeah.
roles. So yeah, I like took off the antlers, took off my creature mask, and kind of stepped in to just help with
Yeah.
the managing of like
Yeah.
3 floors of stuff. And yeah, I learned so much from that. It was my first big professional job out of school 2
Cool.
years
Awesome.
later. So I like cannot be more grateful for Julia and the entire company for letting me just kind of like peek in and
Yeah.
be there. So yeah,
Prance in and creep
Branson.
around. Yeah, love it. So let's spiral to the other performance production
Mhm.
I've witnessed this year, which you were a part of. So Toronto Fringe, there was a show that you produced called Phantasmagoria. I think I said this on our Fringe review panel, but again, it was one of the best works I've seen at the Fringe this year. And
Thank you.
kind of a little bit by accident, I saw it. Like, I only had 2 days where I was in the city where I could see stuff. And
Mm.
so I had the Fringe schedule ahead of me. And obviously, I wanted to first see what in the 2 days can I see and then what do I want to see. And I saw your name attached to Phantasmagoria and I was like, bam, that was like my first choice. I was like, that. Anything else can rove around that. And it
Oh,
happened to be like the last
thank
show
you.
I saw too, because
Okay.
it was on July 7th, I think is when I saw it. And I'm so glad I did because I mean, I'll have you talk about it. Like, what was the show for those who
Mhm.
didn't kind of tune in to a tiny synopsis I did on the Fringe panel? And like, can you unpack that process and maybe some producer role tips, tricks that you gained or brought to that show?
Yeah, this was a project that originally started in 2020. I was going to be in the cast of the 2020 Fringe version of it alongside Near&Far Projects, which is founded by Rachel Fagini and Tavia Christina, two longtime collaborators of mine. And they were going to put on a version of it for 2020. Obviously, that didn't happen. And I'm so grateful that Fringe held our spot because when the 2022 festival looked like it was about to happen, Tavia and I started questioning like we should do this. I feel like this is the right time. We haven't done a live show in literally 2 years. This is a storyline about two partners. It's a queer storyline. We wanted to give dancers and emerging artists the chance to perform and
Mm.
pay them well. We had a little bit of money saved up, but we had to fundraise and hosted improv jams to be able to do that. So, a lot of that process for me was just kind of jumping into it and saying, well, now the time is now.
Yeah.
I can't wait any longer. And I really needed, again, just I was kind of hungry for a show, and I also didn't I wanted to try not dancing, and so
Mhm.
I asked Taves if I could come on as an associate producer, and they were like, yes. I need help. And we quickly realized that like we couldn't do it without each other. So Tavia and I basically co-produced the show. We had an amazing cast of 6 dancers, and you can hear more about the process on our versations. We have a podcast
Nice.
episode about it. But yeah, just to like kind of answer your questions about like being a producer and what that entails, I learned on the spot about what to do and what was needed. And I definitely made some mistakes. But at the end of the day, I was just so grateful to like try this
Mhm.
producing role after being a performer for so long. And yeah, it was really, I think it was well received. We had a lot of people come who gave feedback that it was either really anxious and kind of made you feel uneasy, but also that they were entranced by it and leaned into it. So I hope we like gave a wide, you know,
Yeah.
reaction to what we made. And yeah, when I saw you in the audience during the Q&A, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so serendipitous that you came. I'm so glad to hear that like it was on your radar."
Yeah.
And thank you for the review that
Of
you
course.
and
Yeah.
the cup made. It was so well done. That whole episode is great. So yeah, that was Phantasmagoria.
Yeah.
It's a
And
lot.
that was especially because me seeing Grim Night, which was like, okay, Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty, there's packaged storylines that I grew up with knowing.
Right.
And this was Phantasmagoria was like, it's a original piece, right? Like you guys
Yes.
created it or Tavia created it.
Tavia choreographed it and they
Okay.
like took from personal experience. So
Yeah.
yeah, very original, but hopefully again kind of gave lots of interpretation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like sitting and absorbing and observing that piece. I was, again, we talked about this earlier of like so many things were rushing through and over me of like,
Mm,
I can relate to that, or I can't even imagine what that person's going through, or oh my goodness, I have all these butterflies, this love, or whoa, there's that rage. Like there was just so like a scope of human emotion with the score is just inside of me forever.
yes, our
Um,
composer Braden Kruger, I have to give so many props to
like
him.
so
Incredible.
good. And I found myself like like actually like tearing up through some of it and a lot of the parts too where I didn't think I would be emotional and that part like it just was a masterpiece. And it was and to me like perfect imperfection too because I remember like seeing the piece and being like I totally understand what's going on, but like
Mm,
at the same time there could be nothing going on. This is just like the human experience the
cool.
stage
That's
through
really great to
different
hear.
bodies doing different things collectively and individually. Because I love too that there was that balance between collective movement and then a
Mm,
little bit more like solo and duet pieces too.
right.
But yes, folks, definitely check out more about it on Art Versations because
Yeah, and you can also watch the show
stunning.
now. We
Oh
have
my
it on
God. Okay,
YouTube.
great.
Yeah,
Look at
we
that.
filmed it, so it's on YouTube for free. Just go and check it out.
Okay, we will put that
Yeah.
link below for
Yes,
sure.
I'll send it to
'Cause
you. Yeah.
yeah, that's fantastic.
Phantasmagoric.
Phantasmagoric. Amazing. So you mentioned it as a fundraising opportunity for
Yeah.
Phantasmagoria, but I am so intrigued because again, I like follow you on Instagram and I like your stories and all that stuff. What are improv jams? Like, and are they just dance or is it any type of art? Like what just unpack when you say I'm going to an improv jam or like
Mhm.
hosting an improv jam? Like what is that?
This is a concept that I think musicians, and I'm sure you relate to it as well as an artist, but like when you get into a space with other creatives and just kind of throw things into the playground and
Mhm.
see what happens. And there's like a real emphasis on process and not on product.
Mhm.
I began training in improvisation back at my old studio, Leeming Dance Works in Ottawa. We would throw these improv jams on and open it up to the city. So like a lot of my friends from other studios came, and we would get out of our competitive dance training and just come together as a community. So it started when I was younger. I like was a part of them back when I was like 13.
Mhm.
And I, again, was in lockdown in 2020 and needing other artists and wanting to be fueled by other ideas outside of my own. And Tavia luckily had a residency at the Heliconian Club in Yorkville.
Mhm.
And so we used that space to host, I guess it was about 5 or 6 improv jams. And yeah, I like to describe it as just like a playground of ideas. It's
Yeah.
not just for dancers. We had a bunch of actors come, which was a really great into the scope of what we could do. I'd love for you to come to the next one. I think you'd have
Yeah.
a
Can
lot to
sing like
offer.
singers, obviously.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
I have this vision of like me just like riffing off and someone like moving to what I'm singing.
exactly that. It's exactly that. Plus, like, someone is over there, like, designing a costume,
Okay,
someone
love it.
over there, like, writing a poem. Like, it's what I hope is that it is like a space for creation and
Cool.
not worrying about like what it looks like or who it's for. It's just to get ideas out.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a lot of fun. There's like a recap of it on the Near&Far Project's YouTube channel if you want to take a look. But it really started when I was younger that this training like helped me to get my ideas out. So I wanted to offer that to the community and yeah, and also
Of
others a
course.
little bit. So yeah.
I would imagine too, it's like an exercise in allowing yourself to be vulnerable in a space with other artists too, right? Like,
Totally. The yes and of it all.
yeah, the yes,
Yeah.
and just like, okay, you're in a space and create like whatever that means or how that speaks to you, especially I remember from the years and still even now, but like, especially post school, kind of feeling intimidated by the whole like Toronto scene, art
Yeah.
scene, and something like these improv jams where it is all inclusive and just show up as you are and work through or on anything, any shape or form you want. Like, I feel like that's such a healthy space to
Mm.
dive into.
We do have some rules, like just to
Yeah,
keep the like
of course. Yeah.
safety and like some kind of guideline, but it's basically like just don't hit people,
Hmm.
don't say no to anything, and if someone doesn't want to be touched, don't touch them. Like
Don't
that's
trust them.
all it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
And then throughout that, we could do endless things. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd love to have you
Wow.
come.
That's, of course. Yeah. And if there's like any links or upcoming things, we'll make sure that we include them in this video as well. Cause I think
Sweet.
it's even just to know that's a space, right? Of like, yeah, I feel like I could create something today or just move or sing or yeah, do whatever. I love that you said too, the costuming, like there's someone working on costuming, like, yes, like that is all part of,
aspects.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. All creatives. I think it makes the space so much more alive, and it has been mostly dancers that come just because that's most of my community, but I would love to see like a sculptor show up
Yeah.
and like or like a visual artist too. So, yeah, I think like it also started for me at least. Amy Poehler is like a huge inspiration of mine. And
Mhm.
she like created with three of her collaborators like Upright Citizens Brigade, which is
Mhm.
basically like just like improv training. So I'm like trying to like copy that
I
in
love it.
Toronto and like hopefully it'll take off. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's where like my inspiration is. Yeah.
And even like I feel like too, it's a space to influence and encourage other like facets of the industry to maybe practice or uptake other facets of the industry. Like, for example, I am a mover who can pick up choreography very well, but I
Yeah.
wonder if I'm in an improv jam with a bunch of dancers, I would feel inspired and impacted to move my body in a way that maybe through, society or other projects have told me I can't or I shouldn't or I don't know how to. So
Right.
like it's that exchange and influence of the different sides of art that like can be like a supportive force to encourage. I feel like I'm going on a tangent, but just learning from other
No,
artists
absolutely.
and in different veins of art that you're not comfortable or you didn't train in, right? Like,
Yes. Yeah. A hub
um,
for exchange.
yeah,
Yeah, totally.
yeah, because and I feel like I would probably have a little bit more confidence of like going into the next like dance call or like show us a movement piece. I'll be like, oh, that thing I worked on at the improv jam. Maybe
Yeah.
I'll bring that to the forefront or yeah.
Totally. And it's
Um,
accessible. Like we do it by pay what you can. So
great.
it's not about like paying a big amount of money to go train in these,
Right.
avenues, which is totally fine as well. But I just feel like, if you are looking for a way to train that is more about community and about
Mhm.
like sharing ideas, this is the space for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, it's fascinating. I really do hope it like becomes more
Yeah.
known out there and
Mhm.
because it's just such a especially when you graduate and rehearsal hall space is not accessible to you anymore. Like and the city, we live in a concrete jungle and there's not necessarily financially or spaciously availability for stuff like this, right? And
Mhm.
apartments may not be big enough to, push beyond a boundary that you want to be working at a certain time.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so, so lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
We
do
might
you
do them
have,
again. I don't know.
okay, love that.
Yeah, we'll see.
Let's
I
go
would
down the
love to do
line.
them outside. I think
Yeah.
that's like a better setting. Take it to the streets, like to be more inclusive in that way. And then like passersby can join as well. Like,
Sure. Yeah.
but at the moment I've kind of put it on pause, but I hope to start it up again. If anyone listening has the need to host something like this, let me know. Let's collaborate and
Yeah.
make it happen. So yeah, yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
So lovely. So you said this is on pause for now. Do you have any other upcoming projects or sort of what fedoras that you're going to be donning over the next little while that we can see your expertise in? And are you teaching any classes that folks can maybe get involved into?
I'm a part of a showing called The Garage, which is going to be performed at the Tranzac Club, which is the Frin headquarters, funny enough.
Yep.
On December 9th at 8 p.m., we're going to put on, it's basically two works that are completely original. One is by Ali Carey, who I'll be in their piece, and Kaylin Isserlin is the other choreographer, which I'm excited to see what they're working on. And there's also going to be some other projects and performances kind of scattered in there. It's again, kind of going along with what the improv jam was. It's a program for emerging artists to come together. No one is really getting paid. Like, it's very just about like what we can do in the space together. And the piece that I'm working on with Ali has been really, it's very interesting for me outside of being an artist because it talks about the traditional masculine feminine stereotypes and kind of playing on them or not,
Mm-hmm.
and in conversation around all of that. So it's been a really investigative process for me to work on that. And yeah, come and see. It's going to be fun. I think it's going to be just like just like a hub for exchange, and anyone
Yeah.
can come and with us. So yeah.
Love that. I will be there. If I'm free, I'm there.
And
Yeah.
besides that, classes, I'm not really teaching currently, but you can, follow me on Instagram and hopefully I'll post about things. I've been trying to take some time off from teaching just because I did it so much during lockdown. So,
Right.
but I always love meeting new people in my classes. So yeah, come out and let's dance.
Love that. Let's dance. Okay, great. Yes, we will definitely post all info about the garage. That's so exciting, especially at the top of December. Like, it's crispy cold. People are kind of segueing to the holidays. Come out and see like this fantastic dance piece. Yeah.
It should be fun. It should be like, I think it's going to be a really nice community of people who haven't been able to get together in a while. So
Yeah.
The energy will be up.
There's that like young, scrappy, and hungry vibe coming to the floor for sure.
Totally. We're like fighting it against the proverbial man or whatever.
Yes. Yeah. Great. So at this time, I think I'll let you plug, like any social handles that if people want to keep up with you as an artist and all these projects. Like I said, I'll post links down below, but where can we follow you and keep up with you and give you more story views that I probably do on a daily basis?
Jill, that's so kind. I have an Instagram at Brianna_Clarke with 2 E's at the end. I have a YouTube channel. If you search up Brianna Clarke, you can find it. Listen to our versations. And by the time this comes out, Jillian will also be a guest. I'm trying to put together a best of 2022 episode. So look up for that. And you can kind of get a little taste of different episodes that I've been working on over the year. And if you want to collaborate with me, you can email me at www.bookwithbriclarke@gmail.com. We can discuss some ideas and hopefully make something happen.
Love it.
I also have a website, briclarke.ca. Yes. All the handles.
Thanks.
Yeah. Let's connect. Yeah.
Yes, let's do it. We will pop that all down below for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that we can wrap here. That if there's any, I guess, you know what? No, I am gonna ask one big kind of like existential. Anything. We do this sometimes with our interviewees. What is a piece of advice that you would give to, I guess I'll do a 2-part question to you, if that's okay. To
To go along with our
dancers.
double fisting.
With our double, exactly. We had to get one for the water and one for the hot beverage. What is a piece of advice that you would give to a dancer kind of breaking into the Toronto scene? And then in general, like a piece of advice or comment that you would give to just an artist in the industry in 2022.
For the dancers, sorry.
No, I was going to say, feel free to choose whichever one.
Yeah.
The hot beverage or the cold beverage, whatever fits your fancy.
I'll do it's not so hot anymore, but this is the dancer cup.
Nice.
For the dancers listening, the movers, the shakers, the groovers. I mean, the best piece of advice I've ever gotten was a mantra called by, I don't know who it's by, but it's called "Hold on tightly, let go lightly." And it's this concept, I guess, of clinging to things that mean so much to you in the moment, but if they start to go away, then, you know, let them be free. And I think that also kind of goes along with musculature, like hold on to your resistance, but then let it go. So yeah, I guess I'll say that. That was so deep.
I love that. Oh my God, I love that though. And I don't think that's just for dancers. Like I think everybody can live by that.
Absolutely. Let me switch cups. I mean, I feel
there
like
it is.
The artists out there, like, hold on to your ideas, like let them be precious. And I'm saying this as a reminder for myself too. Let them be precious to you and like mean something to you. But I guess as well, like remember that like it can flow away and it can be lighthearted and accepting that it might be different when it leaves you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I don't know.
Words to the wise with Bri Clarke. We're going to take a sip of water after that one because that is a lot.
Need some
of sage advice. Wow. Okay. Well, that was just like a beautiful pin to this astonishing conversation. I'm so glad and honored to be in your presence today and talking through all this stuff. I mean,
so
like
grateful.
We've said it so many times, but just like community in general and connection and finding those pieces and those people that sort of encourage and influence your vulnerability and of self and as artists. And, you know, those may be under an umbrella of a specific piece that you're working in, but also it's totally okay. And it will happen where you're just making those discoveries as a solo person, artist, making their way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Downtown.
Wow. Making their way downtown. I feel like this could go on forever.
It can. Yeah.
I just always want to be talking to you, but we will
do it soon.
We will do it soon. We will cap this cup episode. So you heard it here, folks, the wonderful Bri Clarke. We will post everything we've chatted about today, links and handle-wise below the episode. Please support her and support Art Versations podcast. Let's keep conversations spiraling everywhere and all the time. Of course, thank you. Like, wow. Yes, thank you. I'm still like reverberating of what
same. Before you finish up, I just want to say how important what you do is, and like thank you for you and Ryan Kenzie for making this happen. Discussing art and bringing people and uplifting other artists is so important. So I'm so grateful for what you do here on the Cup and Cup of Hemlock, and thank you for reaching out about this. I was like anxiously waiting for a message from you since like I guess April, maybe July. So I'm so grateful that we can make this happen. Thank you.
Of course. Yes, that is, we are so grateful to have you. I mean, in retrospect, if you have something down the line too, just tap us and please be like, I have this going on and we will support it. That's our main name of the game here at Cup.
Same to you.
Absolutely. You couldn't have said it better, like uplifting artists now. And now more than ever, we need to support each other and everyone will be more successful and happy and enjoying themselves if we have that genuine support system, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's just how it works. Like it's such a simple notion. It's very hard. Our society makes it very easy for us to forget that, but it's through communal uplifting, that all of us can be our most radiant selves.
Yes.
Together. So go ahead and follow Cup of Hemlock Theatre if you're watching this on YouTube. Give us a like, pop down in the comments if you would like, subscribe, and you can catch us on podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Great. That is where we'll leave you for now, folks. Enjoy the rest of your day when you are listening or watching this. Stay safe, stay creative, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Cheers.